let's bring in the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, Debbie Binder. Always great to have you with us here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Ronnie. It's always a pleasure to be here and join you and Tyler and talk. It really is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
So we have the election behind us. What are your goals for 2021 for the West Bloomfield Township's Clerk's office?
Well, we're still, we've been catching up, and we're still participating in some of the post-election audits that take place. So it's behind us, but we're using some of that now some of the time that we have, because we're obviously not as busy as we were during the election, to prepare for the upcoming election. We don't know yet if we're going to have an election this year. We do have an indication that one of our school districts may have an election in May, so we'll start gearing up for an election fairly quickly. So we're going to start though preparing as though we have being ready to have that election, but we still are concluding with that what's called the risk limiting audit for the last election for November. So that's what we've been doing, but we are doing our normal clerk's office processes, which include fertilizer permits, are busy right now, massage establishment permit licenses, solicitors licenses, things that normally kind of pick up gearing for spring are starting to pick up. Garage sales have definitely quieted down in a COVID environment. We get some, but we're not as busy with that. And we are preparing to bring back our passport services, because that was something that we had to shut down for a little bit. We are going to, on February 1st, we will begin offering passport services again. Initially, we're going to offer them to residents, but we will be taking a list of non-residents who are interested, because we know many places are not offering non-residents an opportunity right now. So we will be taking a list, and as we have openings and availability, we will contact non-residents to slot them into those times.
Debbie, what services are available through your office that are online, and which ones do people actually need to come into the building for?
A lot of them, it's probably best to call. The passport services are definitely, you have to come in. The other licenses and permits, mostly garage sales, you have to come in for. The others, you could make contact by phone, and we can handle some of it by phone. And as long as what we find is there's a level of getting incomplete applications that then somebody often has to run in last minute to submit. But for the most part, there are certain things that can be done online. Best thing to do if you're looking for one of those is to call my office and speak to the person directly that handles it, and they can make sure you know exactly what you need and what you can do via email and what you do need to come in for. It has been quiet. It is. If somebody's worried about coming in, I can honestly say it has been quiet at the counter, so you won't feel like you're coming into a really busy, crowded environment.
Because people are still uneasy. I feel like there is a lot of pandemic fatigue going on right now, but a lot of people are still uneasy about coming into an actual building. What feedback are you getting from members of the community?
The feedback we're getting is really that they're confident with the precautions we're taking. People are respectful. We have an educated population. They're coming in with their masks on. We have plexiglass fully covering each of the windows. So there's areas to conduct transactions below that, but there's a clear screen. We have had very positive feedback. People feel comfortable coming in. Parking is easy. The building is not crowded. It is very manageable. And a lot of if there's anybody calls us, we're going to let them know what a busy time is and what a not busy time is. And we're going to make every effort that we can to accommodate that person. And obviously, if there's an extraordinary case and there's a health issue, we can conduct curbside services. We really are out to make things as easy as possible and as for our residents and as safe as possible. I think that would be the feedback, Ronnie. I think people would tell you that we conduct a safe environment and they feel relatively safe coming in here.
Yeah, Township Supervisor Steve Kaplan has reminded us that the township offices have remained open during this time, but a lot of times it's just that communication. You need to call and try to find out some of the information on what works best for you as an individual. With that, Debbie, if we can go back to the election, it was like one that was it was just crazy. I think everyone is happy that it is over with, but with that, while we often talk about the volunteers that are needed on election day, are there opportunities for regular people to also volunteer throughout the year just to kind of learn more about the process?
I don't know if we have volunteer opportunities as much throughout the year, because when we're not in an election, we're not really doing election activities. But if anybody's interested, one of the best ways to learn about elections is to work elections. And we don't just take people on election day. We do bring in a temporary crew beforehand that help with, the volume of absentee ballots we get. So if somebody's really interested in getting involved, it's an opportunity. Contact my office and find out what the opportunities will be next with the next election that we have. This year is not going to be as busy. Even if we have a school district election, it just won't be as busy as last year was. This past year, we had a presidential primary, and we had a state primary, and then we had a state general. So we had 3 large elections in 1 year that required a lot more hands on deck to just conduct the business at hand. This year, the elections will be special elections or school district elections, and won't be of that same size. Next year, in 2022, we're going to see the gubernatorial again. So we will have a state primary and a state general. It will be a large election year. I don't think we're going to see small elections any longer. Our permanent absent voter application list, which is a list we keep of people who want to be sent an application for an absent voter application, not a ballot. But that list, since Proposal 3, before Proposal 3, it went from about 8,000 people to about 11,000 people. And then with COVID and the efforts to recruit people in COVID, it's gone up to 24,000 people. That's almost half of our registered voters are now on that permanent voter application list. So those people will all receive notification via an application. I don't think we're going to see elections go back to being small again. So I think you will see large turnout going forward.
How do you update the voter registration list?
Okay, it's done by a bunch of different means. Some at the state level, some, they take records. So there's death records, there's social security records, and there's a database that works between different states called ERIC that updates when people move. But when we're working on the database for Michigan, we're working in one singular state database. So if somebody were to move within the state, it automatically updates to where they move to. Now, as far as being on the voter roll, one of the questions we get, because a lot of these applications and the letters from the Secretary of State went to people who had moved out of state. And the best way to describe something is you wouldn't want your neighbor being able to call my office because they didn't like how you were going to vote and saying, well, I'm sure Ronnie moved out of town. Well, that's funny. Ronnie didn't let us know she moved. Oh, no, I know she did. So you wouldn't want it to be that easy for somebody to take somebody off the voter roll. So to get removed from the voter roll, we either have to have as one of those state agencies informing us, which we do get informed, an obituary that shows that someone is deceased. Or if we hear that somebody may have moved, we send what's called a pink cancellation card. This is not a West Bloomfield process. This is an election law process. We send what's called a pink cancellation card to the registered address of that voter. If the voter responds with a matching signature, they stay on the voter roll. If they don't respond, they go into what's called a cancellation countdown, where if we don't hear from that voter over that cancellation countdown period, they are then removed from the voter roll. But that cancellation countdown period is 4 years. It's 2 full election cycles. So it's a 4-year countdown. But what's important to remember is that voter is not going to get a ballot unless we get a signature verified application. So there's a very big difference in that application. And again, I can't stress enough that people don't want it to be so easy to remove someone from the voter roll that they could just call and remove their neighbor. What tends to happen, one of our biggest areas that gets enhanced or plumped, I would say the list is people whose kids grow up and move out of state, and the family still lives there, and no one has ever notified us that child has moved out of town. So I have received quite a few calls, especially as there's been more awareness this year of the issue. We've received more calls from parents that said, I'm getting this for my child. My child hasn't lived here in 10 years. Well, all we have them do is have their kids send us a signature verified request. Please remove me from your voter roll. And we remove them from the voter roll. So that's real. And I think the opportunity this year of all of the people that were engaged by the Secretary of State with COVID will be that voter roll gets cleaned up, because more people will be aware that they're on that roll that didn't realize that they were still on the voter roll. But again, important reminder, if we don't get a signature verified application, no ballot is sent.
It can sound confusing to so many people, but really when you break it down into the steps, it's pretty simplistic as well. People just get lost and taken the time to try to figure out all the steps and what you actually do with that. Debbie Binder here with us on the Megacast. She's the West Bloomfield Township Clerk. With that, Debbie, I'm really hoping 2021 is a much quieter year for you and your staff.
We are too. We are too. This was definitely a long one, but if anybody has questions, one thing I could say, Ronnie, that you provide for us that many communities are not as fortunate to have a program like you are. The key ingredient that's missing in so many cases is voter education. An educated and informed voter is very often a comforted voter. And we are fortunate to have the means to reach our voters, including through your broadcast. So voter education is one of the key areas that we would like to continue to focus on, and hopefully continue to procure some grant money that will allow us to increase our spending in that area so that we can educate voters. But again, you provide a tremendous opportunity for us to have that community outreach and voter education that is just critical, especially in this day and age. But yes, we would like a quiet 2020.
Well, and one of the good things that I hope comes out of this crazy year that we just went through, because with COVID too, it even took on a new importance and a new conversation as well, because we're adding the pandemic on top of that. But it's just what you said, voter education. People are paying more attention, and I think they have ever before. And it was so polarizing, but at the same time, people were looking at the process, but not only that, the individuals running as well. So instead of just marking an X for the female candidate or the Irish candidate or a name that candidate, they were taking time to actually research some of the individuals that were running for office as well. And so we do hope that continues going forward. That could be the silver lining that comes out of this.
Yes. And one thing just to remind people as we talk about, there are I think that some of that voter education that people aren't aware how many steps there are that go into the voting process to start with in preparation and after. We do a public accuracy test where we publicly test the machines to confirm that the machines are accurate. And then you have the county board of canvassers audits every jurisdiction in every precinct in every jurisdiction in Oakland County, all 62 of them. The state board of canvassers then certifies those results and verifies the numbers. And then we also have city and state audits done by random selection. And then we implemented this year at the state level this risk limiting audit that is basically a verification of the election outcomes based on random samplings. It's using statistics. So there are many more levels of verification than people realize that go on in elections. Common understanding is we put out a ballot box and collect the ballots and we count them, and that's an election. If anyone saw the 3 months of preparation and the 1 month of follow-up, an election for a clerk's office is a 4-month event that takes place in preparation. And again, there's just so many layers and levels of auditing and verification that takes place. Best way to learn it is to get involved, work in elections, see the process, and the most reassuring thing I can offer to anybody.
Well, Debbie, we always appreciate the work that you and the members of your team did getting us through the election, but also we're hoping that you enjoy, fingers crossed, a little bit of downtime as we go into 2021. Thank you again, Debbie, for being with us. Always great to talk with you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Always a pleasure to serve. We're here to serve and we're available. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to share some information.
Anytime you want to come on, because you are just a wealth of knowledge. I've learned so much being able to talk with you throughout this process. So thank you as well.
Thank you. Have a great, happy, healthy new year.